A breakthrough for scientists after they had a 20-minute conversation with a humpback whale.
Picture this. A sperm whale the size of a school bus descends into absolute darkness, 2 kilometers beneath the surface of the Caribbean Sea. No light, crushing pressure, and yet it is talking. Not just making noise, talking. In a language that, for the entire history of human civilization, we had absolutely no way to understand. A language so complex, so layered, so deeply structured, that the world's top linguists and marine biologists couldn't crack it. Until now. What you're about to hear isn't science fiction. It isn't a theory or a hypothesis sitting in some academic journal. It is a verified, published, peer-reviewed breakthrough that has fundamentally changed what we know about intelligence on this planet. And the man at the center of it, Richard Godfrey, has left the scientific community genuinely stunned. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will never look at the ocean the same way again. Sperm whales are the largest toothed predators ever to exist on Earth. Their brains are the biggest of any animal, roughly 6 times the size of a human brain. They dive deeper than almost any mammal alive. They live in tight-knit family groups. They mourn their dead. They teach their young, and they have been producing complex clicking sounds, called codas, for millions of years. Scientists have known about these clicks for decades. Since the 1970s, researchers have been dropping hydrophones into the ocean and recording them. And for all that time, the honest answer to the question, "What are they saying?" was, "We have no idea." The clicks weren't random. Everyone could see that. They had rhythm, pattern, structure. Some sequences repeated. Others seemed to respond to sequences from different animals. There was clearly something going on. But the sheer volume of data, combined with the limits of human pattern recognition, made it impossible to decode. A whale might produce thousands of codas in a single dive. A single family group might generate millions over a season. No team of researchers, no matter how dedicated, could manually analyze that at scale. For over 50 years, the language of sperm whales sat just out of reach, tantalizing, complex, and completely silent to us. Richard Godfrey is not a typical marine biologist. His background is in engineering, systems analysis, and, unusually for the field, satellite tracking technology. He became globally known for his work trying to locate the wreckage of Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370, using a technique called weak signal propagation reporter analysis to detect the plane's path across the Indian Ocean. But what most people don't know is that Godfrey had been quietly collaborating with a team of researchers, working on one of the most ambitious animal communication projects ever attempted, a project called SETI, the Cetacean Translation Initiative. SETI was founded by Dr. David Gruber, a marine biologist and National Geographic explorer who had a radical idea that the same machine learning technologies being used to understand human language could be retrained to find structure in whale communication. Gruber assembled a team of linguists, cryptographers, computer scientists, and marine biologists, and set up an underwater listening network off the coast of Dominica, the one island in the Caribbean where sperm whales reliably gather year-round in known family groups. Godfrey's contribution was methodological. He brought his background in signal analysis to bear on the acoustic data the team was collecting. The problem, as he saw it, wasn't just one of volume. It was one of structure. Before you can decode a language, you have to prove that it is a language. You have to find the grammar underneath the sound, and that required a different approach than anyone had tried before. The SETI team fed decades of recordings, millions of individual whale codas, into a deep learning system, a type of neural network similar in architecture to the models used to process and generate human language. The system wasn't given rules. It wasn't told what to look for. It was simply trained on the data and asked to find patterns. What came back stunned the entire team. The AI identified a system of communication with a combinatorial structure, meaning the same basic clicks, when arranged differently, carried different meaning. Rhythm, tempo, interval spacing, and what researchers called ornamentation, subtle extra clicks at the beginning or end of a sequence, could all modify the base meaning of a coda. The number of possible distinct combinations was enormous, far larger than anyone had predicted. But that wasn't the most surprising part. The most surprising part was the social dimension. The AI found that different sperm whale clans, different family groups, use distinct dialects. Not just slightly different versions of the same sounds. Actually different patterns, different structural preferences, different ways of saying the same things. Like regional accents, but more fundamental than that. Like the difference between languages that share a common ancestor, but have diverged over generations. The system could identify which family was communicating simply by analyzing the acoustic signature of their codas. And it found that these dialects were stable across years, passed down from mothers to calves, maintained across generations. This wasn't instinct. This was culture. Learned, transmitted, preserved cultural identity, encoded in sound. To anyone who has spent their career thinking of whales as sophisticated but ultimately simple animals, that finding was world-altering. All of this research was extraordinary on its own. But SETI had a more audacious goal than just understanding whale language. They wanted to use it. In 2023, the team conducted what they describe as the first intentional, structured interspecies communication event in recorded history. A trained diver, equipped with an underwater speaker, descended into the waters off Dominica and played a specific sperm whale coda, one identified by the AI as a known greeting sequence used by whales when encountering familiar individuals. A wild sperm whale was nearby. It responded with the same coda, not a random noise, not a startled reaction, the exact same sequence, played back in a reciprocal exchange. The diver played the coda again. The whale responded again. The exchange continued for a period of time, with both parties repeating and modifying the sequence, behavior the marine biologists present recognized as consistent with how whales greet one another in natural social interactions. This was not a trick. It was not a trained animal. It was a wild whale in open ocean, engaging in what appeared to be a genuine communicative exchange with a member of a completely different species, because that species had finally learned enough of its language to say hello. When Godfrey reviewed the acoustic data afterward, he noted that the structural integrity of the whale's responses was consistent with active, intentional communication. Not distress, not confusion, but engagement. He described it, in a subsequent interview, as the most profound data point I have ever analyzed in my career. Let's slow down and think about what has actually happened here. For the entirety of human history, we have operated on the assumption that complex, structured, culturally transmitted language is uniquely human, that the sophistication of our communication is what separates us from every other species on the planet. That language, real language, with grammar and dialect and social function, is our thing. That assumption is now in serious trouble, because what Project SETI has found in sperm whale codas is not just complex. It is structured in ways that mirror the core properties that linguists use to define language. Combinatoriality, the ability to rearrange basic units to create new meanings. Displacement, the ability to communicate about things beyond the immediate present. Social identity function, the use of language to signal group membership and cultural belonging. These aren't the properties of a sophisticated signaling system. These are the properties of language. This has implications that cascade far beyond marine biology. It forces a rethinking of animal cognition research across dozens of species. It raises profound ethical questions about how we treat whales and what rights, if any, we owe to beings with complex language and culture. It changes the legal frameworks around whaling and ocean conservation in ways that politicians have barely begun to grapple with. And it raises a question that some researchers are already asking out loud. If we missed this in the oceans of our own planet, for the entirety of human civilization, what else are we missing? The SETI team is not stopping. They are currently expanding their hydrophone network, feeding new data continuously into their AI systems, and working toward a far more ambitious goal, a real-time translation interface. Not a system that analyzes whale communication after the fact, but one that can process incoming codas in the moment, map them against its database of known patterns, and generate a plausible interpretation in near real time. The ethical debates around this are real, and the team takes them seriously. Any attempt to initiate or respond to whale communication at scale carries risks, disrupting social structures, altering behavioral patterns, creating dependencies that could harm populations. These aren't hypothetical concerns. They are being worked through in parallel with the technical research, involving marine ethicists, indigenous Pacific and Caribbean communities, who have long maintained their own knowledge traditions around whale behavior, and international conservation bodies. But the direction of travel is clear. We are moving slowly, carefully, but unmistakably, toward the first sustained dialogue between two species on this planet. Richard Godfrey, who has spent years of his life searching for a missing aircraft in the most remote ocean on Earth, has said that the whale communication work feels more significant than anything else he has touched. We spend enormous resources searching for intelligence in space, he said in a recent public lecture. We may have been swimming next to it all along. The ocean covers more than 70% of this planet. We have mapped less of the deep sea floor than we have mapped the surface of Mars. And in those waters, for millions of years, creatures with larger brains than ours have been having conversations we couldn't hear. Now, for the first time in human history, we are beginning to listen, really listen, to what they're saying. And what they're saying is this: intelligence is not a human invention. It is a feature of life itself. We are not alone on this planet. We never were. The only question that remains is what we choose to do with that knowledge. If this changed how you think about the world, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And drop your thoughts in the comments, because this conversation is just getting started.